I firmly believe in communication. Communication is key, and keeping your client in the loop and educating your client across the process and being 100% transparent across the board. How we have our transparency, we do drone footage that we send them. We do weekly progress reports that we show them photos of everything. We don't try to hide photos. We don't try to hide stuff from our client. If there is an issue, we let them know, hey, this is an issue we've had with this trade. Don't worry about it. We always, before we tell them or before we go have the conversation, we always want to make sure we have a solution to the issue, right? You don't want to come with them with a problem without a solution, right? I tell my staff all the time, if we got a problem, that's fine. Come to me with the problem, but come to me with a potential solution, and then I can tell you if that's a good solution or not, right? If there's an issue, we tell them, hey, this is a problem. I got a prime example of transparency. We're doing a big project out in Celeste. We hired a underground utility contractor to do the work, started performing. I didn't agree with the process that he was performing the work on. I said, hey, typically, because he was running 4,400 linear foot of underground 3-inch water line. This is a lot of pipe. And I said, and what he was starting to put it together, he's starting to bury it as he put it together. And I said, man, we don't ever do that. You put it all in, you pressure test everything, you leak test everything. Then once you know it's not leaking, you cover back up. And he argued back and forth with me. And I said, okay, that's fine. If you want to do that, you can do that. But if we have any leak issues, I'm going to make you open the whole thing up and we're going to check every individual fitting on the pipe. 3 or 4 weeks, he's putting this pipe in. He finally gets in after a month. He pressurizes it. We had a major blowout at one of the fittings. I mean, water shooting the ground. This stuff's buried 3 foot deep. And so we go out there, we inspect it. Well, at the time, my superintendent inspecting it, it was where the pipe reduced from 3 inches to 2 inches. The fitting wasn't connected properly. When he looked at it, he noticed that some of this pipe is all knocked in. It's got a gasket in it and it's knocked together, and there's a line you're supposed to knock it to. Well, not all of it was knocked all the way in. And I said, you know what? I want him to pull that. I want to inspect these gaskets. I made him go back, take an excavator. I actually ended up hiring another trade because at this point I need some help with this. I said, okay. So I brought in another utility company. They're like, dude, this is what he's done wrong. This is what we need to do to fix it. So we had to pull all the pipe out of the ground. Well, you think, from a contractor's perspective, your client sees this, they're like, what's going on? Are you doing stuff right? Well, if you educate your client and explain to them, hey, at the end of the day, I got to warranty this work. So I'm looking out for your best interest. I didn't agree with the way he was doing it. Part of the reason you hire me is to make sure who I hire is doing their job right. He wasn't. I made him go back and redo it. We pulled it apart. We noticed some gaskets were busted. We're going to replace those, because the last thing we want is you to have any other issues. So we're putting everything back together. We're burying it. We're going to pressure test it while the trench is open. Then we're going to cover everything up. And when you have that conversation, they're like, oh man, thank you so much. They were so happy. And, when it comes to subcontractors, unfortunately, sometimes you don't always hit home runs. We've got a bunch of great guys who worked with us for a long time. And then some guys that they'll talk the talk, walk the walk, have the references. We do our due diligence our end. And then at the end of the day, they've either bitten off more they can chew, or it's just something they couldn't handle. And so it's unfortunate. It's very rare that it does happen. But that conversation could have gone a ton of different ways. Us being upfront, showing them photos, showing them what we're doing, explaining what we're doing. And then we actually had an on-site meeting yesterday. We were there for about an hour and a half, not just going over that, going over other stuff, to where they're like super happy, shake your hand, thank you very much. Now, I really appreciate that y'all are doing that, because we don't want to have any issues with that later on. A lot of people would be like, oh, don't tell them. We don't want them to, if they know that, they're going to think we're not doing our job right, blah, blah, blah. Like, at the end of the day, this is construction. You're going to have issues. There's going to be problems. It's how you handle those problems and how to communicate those problems to your client, or to your subcontractors or whoever else is the make or break it. You know what I mean? You communicate it properly and show them properly, hey, what the issue is. It's not an issue. When you try to hide crap or just sweep it under the rug, that's when, it's just like anything in a relationship or in life. Anytime you try to sweep something under the rug or hide it, it's going to rear its ugly head, and then you're going to have to deal with it later on. And at that point, it's escalated to an issue that, you couldn't deal with. If you would have just cut it off at the beginning and said, hey, by the way, this is what happened. This is what we're doing. They're like, oh, okay, cool, no problem. It's not going to delay us on the project. We're working all weekend. We're going to get it done. We still got to do all this other stuff first. So it's not going to push anything back. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? That's a big part of how we are very transparent. I pride ourselves on communication. I tend to over communicate because I want to be very clear what our expectations are, what your expectations are, so that there's no confusion when we're in the middle of a project on what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. I'd rather have that conversation up front than get a contract and then I'm backed into a quarter later on. You know what I mean?